All right, Blairy, good to see you once again on League of Our Own. Before we talk anything rugby league and preview the week ahead, you've got something you'd like to get off your chest?
Yeah, just quickly before we jumped on, Goran, I thought you looked a little bit pale.
Pale?
No sun over there, or you've been inside a lot with work?
Yeah, it's a combination of the two things. It's inside with work, and also we've had like a thunderstorm, over the last like 4 or 5 days. Auckland's seen very little sunshine, so even though I've been stuck in the office, I wouldn't have been able to get a tan if I was outside. But look, thanks for noticing, mate. And I'll try and get some vitamin D at some
Sorry,
point.
bro.
Yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. We can't all have like a healthy Newcastle tan like you do, man.
It's raining right now, so we got a bad week here. Must be the weather coming back from you guys.
Yeah. We just bounce it back across the ditch, mate. But look, great to see you. Sorry that I'm so pasty and white. I'll try and do something about that, which is going to be difficult considering we're heading into winter. But, mate, a massive question that I want to ask you, and hopefully between the two of us we can try and answer it this week. Why do we have an ANZAC Day match in Christchurch for the Warriors against the Newcastle Knights? For a period of time there, we were doing it so well, heading across the ditch to Melbourne to play the Storm, and regardless of the results, it was one hell of an occasion, something that Warriors fans, rugby league fans in this country would really look forward to. And now I don't want to say that it's gone down the S-bend, but it's just not the same. And I hope that I'm not being disrespectful to you and your Newcastle Knights when I say that, but in terms of a spectacle, it's not on the same level. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, Goran. I think when I think back to my time playing in these games, it was one of those games you marked in the calendar. Whether I was at the Melbourne Storm or in the Warriors team, it was one game you looked forward to. And I think there was a time and a period there when my time at the Warriors that we as players would have loved to bring a game against the Melbourne Storm to Go Media Stadium and play an ANZAC game in New Zealand on our home soil and showcase what the club could have given, the experience that they could have given to the Melbourne Storm. Unfortunately, when push came to shove, that didn't come to, and we got pushed off to, when I was there, to the Gold Coast Titans, and now the Newcastle Knights. And like you said, it's nothing against the Newcastle Knights, it's nothing against the Gold Coast Titans. But it became a tradition. It became a tradition, and I really enjoyed playing in that ANZAC game against the Melbourne Storm, or even with the Melbourne Storm against the Warriors, and the spectacle that the Storm used to do, and how much they embraced it and celebrated it, but also the players as well. I feel like it's lost that whole connection around, I guess the Melbourne Storm and the Warriors and what they created through the times that they've played, and it's weird. It's weird that now they don't play the Melbourne Storm. They played the Gold Coast Titans at Go Media Stadium, and now it's Newcastle Knights in Christchurch. I just don't see where it all marries up and what the connection is. I get it. It's ANZAC Day. I know that. We respect it for what it is. But when I think about the opposition and the teams, and I guess, we've spoken about the Melbourne Storm from our time and how important it was when New Zealand players played against their own countrymen and the whole ANZAC spirit.
Yeah.
That was the difference for me, and I don't feel like that connection's there anymore.
Yeah, and when I look at other, let's call them traditional fixtures, we just saw one, right, a couple of days ago, where the Eels and the Tigers had a red-hot go at each other on Easter Monday. We see it again on Easter weekend, where the Bulldogs in front of, how many turned out to?
65, I think.
Yeah, 65,000. Yeah, close to 70,000 up against the Rabbitohs. So these traditional fixtures are things that fans can rally behind, get into, and all of a sudden, it's just changed. And if we're not playing an ANZAC League test, which would be my absolute preference, I'd love to see a mid-season or early season test where the Kangaroos and the Kiwis go at it and maybe they trade venues. But if we can't have that, and if the NRL is protecting the competition, then surely the Warriors up against the Melbourne Storm, which was gathering a hell of a lot of momentum, regardless of the results. I know that the Warriors are on the back end of an absolute hiding against the Melbourne Storm, but it was definitely something we could look forward to. And the Knights don't really present that same offering. And, you know, if you're thinking about a tiered system, you'd probably put the ANZAC League test at the top, Melbourne Storm versus the Warriors right in behind it. But I don't even know where to place the Warriors and the Newcastle Knights. And when you look at what the Knights are offering at the moment in terms of performance, and they're not really performing, you know that. You're seeing it firsthand, up close and personal as part of the club. They're scoring on average 10 points a game across the first 6 fixtures. They're bleeding points. They have a massive crowd turnout to support them, and they're just not putting up the performances and the results. And so all signs point to a Warriors landslide victory, but it's just not enough to get me excited about it.
Yeah, we spoke about it. It's the ANZAC, it's that feeling of, I guess, yes, you're not going to war, but the people that have gone to war for you to be to where you are today. And you kind of embody some of that when you go out and play. And it's normally, obviously you have that connection with the Storm. You normally have those Kiwi players that are there against your fellow countrymen. You got a couple of Aussies and I get it. Yeah, the Newcastle Knights have maybe couple of Kiwis in their team.
Yeah, they've got a few guys with connections, right?
Yeah, you got a few guys with connections, but I still don't feel the ANZAC spirit. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when you're out there, you sing the national anthem. Sing the national anthem, you can feel a feeling that connects you to the game, to the ANZAC, and to the people that have gone and fought for you to be to where you are. And yes, like you said, the Newcastle Knights haven't been playing their best footy. Six games, they haven't been able to score too many points. They're under a lot of pressure, not only individually, but as a team. And you said it, the fans here in Newcastle are absolutely outstanding to turn up the last couple of weeks, sell out that stadium in the beautiful sunshine here in Newcastle.
I wouldn't know anything about that, mate.
Newcastle. And then not be able to give the results, and everyone's disappointed. The players are disappointed. I think the biggest thing, and like you said, it looks like a landslide to heading towards the Warriors. The thing that's going for the Newcastle Knights is they've got a 5-day turnaround. There's not much thought of what happened last week. It's quickly moved and switched their focus straight over into the Warriors in this ANZAC game. They've got a really meaningful jersey that they're going to be wearing, which is an outstanding, recognition to the 36th Battalion here in Newcastle that donned the colours of what they were. I think it was like a green, it's a green teal colour and a cinnamon brown. These weird names now that they've come up with. So there's an opportunity there on that special day to be able to put in a performance that they can be proud of, not only individually but as a team, up against a Warriors team that come off a strong win against the Brisbane Broncos, and some quality performances all through that.
Cinnamon brown. You make it sound
Cinnamon brown.
Yeah, you make it sound like a flash bag of potato chips, because it's not just you're making these chips with like pukekohe potatoes, and it's Long Bay rock salt. It's not just like ready salted chips. It's cinnamon brown. Look forward to seeing that on Friday, mate. Look, you talk about players finding a reason to get up for the game, and with the Newcastle Knights travelling so poorly. And we mentioned the players with connections to New Zealand, one way or another. You've got the Thompson twins, Leo and Tyrone, and I'm sure they would be ecstatic to play in this fixture. Phoenix Crossland as well. And then guys like Kalen Ponga and Dane Gagai, who have both played for your New Zealand Māori. So there are similarities between what this Newcastle Knights team will have and what your Melbourne Storm team had all those years ago, finding reasons, the New Zealand connection to get up for this game. The Newcastle Knights have threats, but they're just not clicking at the moment. That could happen on a night like ANZAC Knight.
You would hope so.
You would hope so.
I think you mentioned a couple of those Kiwi players. There's no more, I guess, powerful, traditional, culturally connected people than the Thompson brothers, and I think it's one of those days for, I guess, family to become closer together, whether it means as in using that Anzac Day spirit as a way to come out firing. I know Leo, he's playing some of the best footy, I think, this year, and playing some pretty big minutes for the Newcastle Knights, and on home soil, Phoenix Crossing. I think he'll have a group of 20 family members turn up and support him. I think they're from Greymouth, so just around the corner. So who have a fair crew down there, and for those Kiwi boys that have that kind of connection, I feel like they will definitely stand up. The Aussie boys in Newcastle, I don't know in the past what team they've played against in the Anzac game or the Anzac round, which is this round. So I don't know if they have that connection to the Anzac game like our Kiwi boys can have. Yeah. Like you said, the form. Yes, you'd be brave to go against the Newcastle Knights or the Warriors, because you're only one game away from winning a game, and you're one game of putting in a quality performance. And like I said earlier, 5-day turnaround, you don't have much time to worry about what happened, on Sunday. It's now quickly moved, the focus has shifted, and I think they were on a plane Monday afternoon heading to Christchurch, so they'll be on the ground there now getting ready to go.
Last week we spoke about no James Fisher-Harris, no RTS, no DWZ, no Rocco Berry, no CNK. I want to talk about the guy who filled in for the first triple banger, the Fish, Te Ika, James Fisher-Harris, Jackson Ford. What performance he put in. I feel like on the back of something like that, where he ran for more than 150 metres, he played for 66 minutes, he topped the tackle count. He produced more tackles than Wade Egan in the middle there. Last year, we spoke about him as a potential smoky for Origin. Maybe he picks up a bench spot. If he continues like that over the next month, I wonder if Laurie Daly will just keep an eye on that and maybe consider him. If he's done the damage against a Brisbane Broncos pack that has all of those impressive players at their disposal, he's gained confidence from the efforts against the Broncos, and he can take that into the Knights, who, they are in trouble, and their leaders are missing. There's no Adam Elliott and there's no Saifiti. So
yeah,
what are they going to do?
Yeah, I think you touched on it. I thought Jackson Ford was enormous. You got to give credit where credit's due. Alongside Mitch Barnett, Aaron Clark was enormous, and
huge.
I feel like Aaron Clark has been growing for the last few weeks. When they're winning performances, I feel like Aaron Clark's been, if not one of their best players through the middle of the park, and being able to create the momentum through his leg speed, turn up defensively, ball play a little bit. But on the back of him, you have guys like Jackson Ford and Mitch Barnett, who I feel like are no-frills players. They just get their jobs done. They're tough. The only difference, I think, with Mitch Barnett and Jackson Ford is Mitch Barnett's got a bit more aggression going for him. He doesn't mind coming out of the line and whacking someone. Jackson Ford's a strong, tough player. He's an Origin player. He'll get through his work. He's pretty. I think early he had a couple of mistakes in his game, in that Broncos game, but come home real strong. He's a guy that's mostly one of, if not their fittest forwards. He gets through a mountain of work, and you said it, topped the tackles, ran for over 150 metres. He was enormous for them, and it allowed the other players to do their jobs as well outside of them. And you said it all. There was a lot of names missing, and some of their leaders as well, and some big names in some key positions. But everyone that played that game, I thought was enormous for the Warriors. And the Newcastle Knights are going to be up against it. Definitely, they don't have their best 13 on the field. They are down some leaders, and Jacob Saifiti for me is one of their most influential leaders alongside Leo Thompson. And when those two are on the field, I feel like the team are more confident while they're playing. And again, someone like Adam Elliott, who plays a style of football that suits the Newcastle Knights, but has a really good relationship with those middles. So when you're down a few players, then it's hard for those guys to connect with each other and be able to build what they want to try and do out on the field. So, man, a tough night. It's going to be a tough ask for the Newcastle Knights, but they're one game away from trying to get themselves back into where they want to be and up against, for me, a strong Warriors side put together.
Yeah. I feel like we could almost replay part of last week's chat and just reapply it to the Newcastle Knights. We spoke about how a way to get under the Broncos' skin was to put a blowtorch to Reece Walsh and Selwyn Cobbo, because Reece Walsh led the competition for errors and Selwyn Cobbo wasn't far behind. Fast forward to present day, and we've got Kalen Ponga, would you believe, leading the competition with errors, 17, and Greg Marju is just behind him in third spot with 12 errors. So between the two of them across, 6 games, they've produced 29 errors. And I really feel like, in terms of Kalen Ponga, he is trying so hard to turn things around, so he is so active with his hands on the ball as often as he can, and that's where the errors are coming from, because he's trying to become so prominent given the plight that faces the Newcastle Knights. Greg Marju, man, he can be like a human wrecking ball, but he's just got hands like feet, to quote an old rugby commentator at the moment. He cannot catch a cold. He can't seem to retain possession of the ball, and that's got to be hugely frustrating for Newcastle Knights fans and members of the coaching staff as well, when you've got a guy who can break a game open in the back three and he just can't hold the ball, Blairy.
They got world-class players through their back line. And
Bradman Best, Dane Gagai, yeah.
I guess that's the threat that the Newcastle Knights have. But until they build some confidence in their style of footy, until they can get rid of some of those errors that they're making, and especially some of those key players, I feel like they'll still keep doing the same stuff. But on the flip side, I think personally, individually, they would understand what they need to do well and what they need to do better. And you give those guys that you just mentioned a sniff, an opportunity to play football. Guys like Bradman Best, guys like Dan Gagai, guys like Kalen Ponga, Greg Marju, he can break open games from at the backfield. Fletcher Sharp, who we've seen on the weekend, can make things happen. There is some talented players in that Newcastle Knights backline. So, yes, they're not, I guess, there's not much cohesion in their style of football that they're playing right now, or there may be not enough confidence in themselves and their ability, because in the back end of that Sharks game on Sunday afternoon, when they just played football, they actually scored some points. Whether the Sharks clocked off or not, they still had to be able to come up with some opportunities to score points. So, yes, the Newcastle Knights aren't playing their best football. It's obvious. Yes, there's must be some confidence within the team individually about maybe the way they're not playing. There is some errors in some of those key players, and they're coming up against a Warriors side that is finding some consistency. Luke Metcalf's putting them into corners. Greg Marju, he's going to be in for a long night because Luke Metcalf will kick down his side all night. The vision is all there. You can't hide away from performances these days, but allow the Newcastle Knights to play, then you'll be in trouble. But I'm thinking that they'll be able to knuckle down this week and get ready for a big performance, because they definitely need to up against a strong Warriors team for sure. Yeah,
and there's a few changes for the Warriors ahead of this ANZAC Knight match against Newcastle and Christchurch. CNK comes back to the fullback position. Taintua Piki goes to the wing. The real big dog is back. Rocco Berry is in the centres, which means that Kurt Capewar as he's often referred to. He goes back into the back row, and Leka Halasima, he's on the bench. Kurt Capewell, we spoke about him and his lack of pace, but we also mentioned his determination and his experience at the higher level. And I just thought to myself, when he was tearing off, as Kurt Capewell can, down that right touchline, and the grimace on his face, the mouth guard.
Sore.
Oh my God! Like the dude he was in agony, wasn't he? He just had to play. I mean, you played in that nines competition earlier in the year. You know what it's like trying to, go full tit and not have it in the tank. But look, he did an incredible job down that sideline and fling the pass inside to Luke Metcalf. Like, it was a great performance from Kurt Capewell. But he'll be so much more at home in the back row against the Knights as well. And when we look at that battle of the back rows, and you've got Marata Niokore doing really well on one side, and the experience of Kurt Capewell. Is that a possibility of a bit of a mismatch with the Newcastle Knights as well? Just lacking a bit of something in the back row department?
I think, you look at Marata, and I'm going to talk about Leka as well, and their back rows and the style of football that they play. Marata typically, and we've known Marata just to be a tough, strong carry inside shoulder on the halves. So Fletcher Sharp or whoever's defending in that half position will be in for a big night. Marata is known to be running those at smaller defenders. That's your job as a back rower. And Marata's not going to shy away from doing exactly the same thing. He scored a good try for the Warriors by doing exactly what he does. And that's his job. So whoever's in front of him on Friday night is going to have their work cut out. The difference between, I guess, Leka can run a line, but he can also, as we saw, that drop-off play where he just skips back underneath someone, comes off his right foot, strong carry, palm, gets through the try, tells everyone to shush. There's some players that like to get the ball early, come underneath. Hudson Young's a prime example, skip across the field, look for opportunities. I think Leka is quite similar to a Hudson Young, of the way that he carries the ball back through the middle of the park, can break defenders open, can find space real quickly with his strength. So the back rowers and the halves for the Newcastle Knights are going to have their work cut out, because I reckon a contrast of difference when it comes to back rows. Kai Pearce, Paul, and we all see the vision. Likes to get early ball, skip a bit over. He's not typically known to running that hard inside shoulders line on a half. Although he's 7 foot and got elbows and knees up to your chin, can be a damaging run at times. We did see him use his offload abilities on Sunday afternoon and being able to find some space there. The one person that I'm looking forward to and seeing back in the team is Dylan Lucas. This kid can play some footy. They've missed him through a hammy injury at training, but he comes back into the side, and he's an Indigenous all-star. If he keeps his body right, I definitely think he'll be in the contentions for New South Wales and the conversations there. He's a superstar in the making, this kid. So to have someone like that next to you, if you're in half, that can be a player that you can go to, that you can rely on. He's tough. That's where I reckon the Warriors will have to work a bit harder on Dylan Lucas's side, left back rower, their right hand side. So a contrast of back rowers, but everyone's going to have their work cut out on that edge.
Yeah. What about Luke Metcalf? You mentioned him very briefly earlier, and I think I did too. The stones that he had to slot that penalty goal from halfway in very difficult conditions at Go Media Stadium, Mount Smart, to win that game against the Broncos and Golden Point. But it's not just that, he's really starting to come of age after that Raiders performance where, a few critics said maybe he's not the 7, maybe he's the 6, and I feel like that's exactly what I said on the back of that performance. But I wasn't alone. He's proving me and everybody else wrong. He's the kind of guy that he craves that big moment, doesn't he? He doesn't shy away from it. And how good is that for the Warriors? Because he's only young and he's showing this sort of bravery and this sort of courage so early in his career. It bodes well for the future. And then I look at the flip side and I see this revolving door policy that the Newcastle Knights have going on. And I know that things might be fixed for next year with Dylan Brown coming to town and Fletcher Sharp playing alongside him in the halves. But you don't have a guy that you can rely on. And so there seems to be a bit of a mismatch in the halves, the confidence and the capability that the Warriors have versus the potential in Fletcher Sharp and then the unknown in the 7 jersey. That's got to be frustrating for not only the likes of Fletcher Sharp and whoever's wearing the 7, but the players around them. They're dealing with something new pretty much every other week, mate.
I feel like they're experienced, Goran, because it's happened so much for them, hasn't it?
It's just a regular occurrence now.
It hasn't just been this year.
Yeah.
It's been well documented over the last couple of years about the halves at the Newcastle Knights and the shifting of players and the different combinations. So for me, it's consistency. Eh? We talk about reps. We talk about reps in whatever position you are. We talk about connection. We talk about trust and understanding each other's game. And I guess the more times you move people around, it's like bringing in rookies into a game and not knowing exactly what you're going to get from them. And then putting them out there, and it's either you knew what you were going to get and then they showed you that the opposite. So it's a little bit of the unknown, I think, when it comes to those combinations. It's what are we going to get, and are we going to get what we need so that we can get a win? And you think about, you think on the flip side of the Warriors side, Luke Metcalf, love what he's doing. Love what he's doing. He's embracing the big moments. He's embracing the talk, loving his try celebrations and all those little things that he's taken from the football and putting it into action. It's cool to see players being real and being themselves and being authentic, and he's doing it really well. I guess he's enjoying that role of being the playmaker, the 7 that puts the ball into the corner. He's got a big enough kick to do it. He loves controlling the team, and when your team's playing well, he can do good things. And again, with him and Chanel, building those relationships, building those connections with their middle, with Aaron Clark, the more consistency, the more reps together, the beneficial. They're going to benefit from all the work and the reps that they're doing together. And again, you win, you feel good, everything seems to be working well. You're on the back foot, you're losing. You're trying to find things to help you get that win, and that could be the difference.
Yeah, so all signs are pointing to a Warriors win. We've got a really positive record. The Warriors in the last 10, I believe, against the Newcastle Knights in New Zealand. The Warriors have won 9 of those 10. They haven't been defeated by the Knights in New Zealand since 2019. It's top 4 versus bottom 4. But you know what? If the NRL this season has taught us anything, the only thing you can really rely on is a Bulldogs win, because even the Melbourne Storm get 40 put on them straight when they play the Dolphins, and the Penrith Panthers lose 5 straight, and even the Eels can win a game on Easter Monday against the Tigers. Benji Marshall and Lachlan Galvin. You thought that maybe he would be gone for the season. Turns out that he's back for the Sharks this week, so that's an interesting thing. What have you made of the whole circus, this debacle, the nonsense surrounding it? Because the news just keeps on coming out. In the last day or so, we've heard that there's been a legal letter sent to the Tigers club saying that he's no longer in a safe work environment, that he felt bullied by numerous things. I'm assuming some of those bullying moments may have been like the social media posts from LOOO and also Sania Turuva. So it's a weird old situation. How do you think Benji is handling it right now? Because last week it was all good, and now with Lachlan Galvin coming back into the side, I'm starting to wonder whether is he losing control to a certain extent? What's your read on it?
Does he still sue him, even though he's playing for bullying this week? You know what I mean? Like, if you feel like you're getting bullied, and they've said that they're gonna sue the club, but then you still play. What's the difference? I thought the one press conference I saw Benji have, I thought he handled himself pretty good. I thought he was open. I thought he was honest. I thought he was clear with what he wanted to say. And I guess I applaud him for, saying how he felt, because, you could get to a position as a head coach, I feel, with all the pressure and all the outside noise, and say something that everyone wants you to say. But I feel like Benji in his moment spoke about, how much he enjoyed coaching him, how much he wants him to be a part of the team, how much he hasn't, put him to the side and made him feel welcome, and that he's a good person, that his parents are good people. Whether he was saying that from the bottom of his heart or he was just saying it to say that, I thought he handled himself pretty well. It has been a circus over here, Goran, to be honest. And the poor kid, he's only 19 years old, and he's been thrown through, I guess, a lot of social media stuff. And yes, you've had leaders of the Tigers stand up and say what they've said with, Luai's post and Sinia Taruva's post as well. At the end of the day, the game moves really quickly. But the problem is with the West Tigers, and this has always been the West Tigers, what is said behind closed doors should always stay behind closed doors, but it never does. And this is what makes things worse for the individual, the players, and then the club, because it's always been spoken about. I feel sorry for the players of the club, everyone, not just Lachlan Galvin, but everyone, because at times the pressure from the outside will creep in and eventually be into the playing group. Then people listen, and you can only, down in Sydney's, 24/7 rugby league's on the screens 24/7. The media doesn't stop talking, and it eventually affects the style of football or the football you play, because you start causing fractures within the group. And this one was a big one last week. And now they have to play with this guy who they didn't want in the team and still be able to come up with a result. They go and play your Eels, and there was some crazy calls in that game. Mitch Moses comes back and kicks all these stuff. He puts a 40-20 in. He's got 4 try assists. He sees things that no one else can see on the field.
He totally changed the Eels, man. One man changed that Eels outfit.
He was magical. The forwards looked like they went up another gear. Dylan Brown wanted to play football and do everything he can possible to get the win. And the West Tigers struggled. And you can ask them if the off-field noise was a big part of why they lost, and they'll say no. But eventually, it actually zaps the energy out of players around them. So, going back to your question, I thought Benji handled himself really well. But now they've got another problem, because now they've put him in the team. And the question, they're going to say, well, why didn't you believe him in the team last week? You left him out, now you're putting him back in. And your senior players stood up in the media and said, like, if you're going to say stuff to our coach, we're going to back him. You know what I mean? So they wanted Lachlan Galvin to be out of the team. This week they're saying we need him back. You know what I mean? So it's a hard one. It's a hard one, but the media will keep the story rolling.
Yeah, I really feel for Benji. I often say it, but I feel for him, because it's a balancing act. You've got a guy in Lachlan Galvin who is clearly a talent, and he's a better option than Adam Dewey in the halves to go alongside Jerome Luai. But Benji's copped this absolute broadside. Lachlan Galvin doesn't rate him as a coach, essentially, and he's on the books for another year and a half, more than a year and a half. And so you're like, okay, well, he's the best player in the position. I should probably play him, but he doesn't want to be at the club. And now we've got players that probably don't want to play alongside him. The kid and his manager have said, well, he's feeling bullied. He feels like it's an unsafe work environment. But, so, yeah, as a coach, and you have been a coach, you are a coach, you've been in charge of the New Zealand Māori for a number of years, and it's all about the connection and the relationships. And so how does Benji then navigate and negotiate between players? Like, we've got to get back on the same page here, because we started off the season so strongly, and it's very, very rapidly in the last couple of weeks unraveling. Results against the Warriors, the Eels, the Lachlan Galvin situation. All of a sudden, this season could get away from them, and it's up to Benji to try and knit everything together. And I wonder if he can.
And you've got some strong voices like Jerome Luai in there as well, who has come from, mind you, a real successful organisation that knows what success looks like, that knows what leadership looks like, that understands the formula of wanting how to win and how to compete every single day to be the best player you can be. So he gets it and he understands that. But he is a big voice in the game, which sometimes, for players is confronting, because not too many players are like Jerome, who stand up to what they think and say the things he does. But at the same time, you've got to give him credit, because he's come from a place where it's been so successful. But Benji's got a tough job. Like you said, it's about relationships, it's about trust, it's about connection. And if you can't get that back into the squad, then their season could spiral downwards for them, and they'll be back in a similar position that they've been in for a long time.
Man, I'm almost contemplating giving away the Betcha This Happens stuff, Blairy, because it's not going well. Last time out, 4 from 8. And again, we lost in the first match of the last round. I picked the Manly Seagulls to beat the Dragons because they were at home Thursday night under the lights at Brookie, and they lose by 2 points to the Dragons. So this time around, for Betcha This Happens for round 8, I'm just going to pick the favourites on the Betcha app.
Why not?
Any issues with that?
That's the safest option.
Okay. All right. Well, then let's begin. So the favourite when it comes to the Broncos and the Bulldogs is the Dogs. Let's back the Dogs. And, mate, they are the only team. Yeah, they are the only team that you can rely on in this competition. Are the Broncos going to beat them?
I don't think they will. Man. Like you said, man, this Dogs team is like a dog to a bone in everything that they do. Mentally, physically, they are prepared to go after the game. And, you look at them and you think maybe they can't do that for 80 minutes. But somewhere inside them, it's been instilled over the last 4 years under Cameron Serrato that this is who they want to beat. And they've obviously taken a leaf out of the Penrith Panthers defensive system, and they're really knuckling down to what works for them as a team, but coaching a style of football that suits the individuals as well. So, man, going to be hard to beat the Dogs, the Brisbane Broncos. But are the Broncos at home?
Yeah, they are.
At home at Suncorp, still, I think the Dogs are going to be too strong. So, man, they're going to keep their winning streak going.
Yeah, and a couple of former Warriors boys have got the all-time upgrade at the moment, sitting pretty at the top. Josh Curran and Marcelo Montoya as well. So
Marcelo, he's enjoying his time at the Doggies.
Sure is, yeah. All right, we've got Roosters and Dragons. The Roosters are the favourites there, so I better back them. They're paying $1.73. Warriors are heavy favourites against the Knights on ANZAC Knight. Your Knights are paying $3.45 in a head-to-head battle. That's ridiculous. Melbourne Storm are almost unbackable, so I've got to go with them. And they'll bounce back against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Rabbitohs paying $4.50. Goodness gracious me. Storm, I mean, you would have been on the end of a few Craig Bellamy sprays in your time in the sheds after a game. Not many, not often. But what about the state of their capitulation against the Dolphins last week? Like, I can't really recall a Melbourne Storm side having 40 unanswered points put on them. When has that ever happened to Craig Bellamy's Storm?
And I think neither has the coach in his tenure of being the coach of the Melbourne Storm. Crazy. Unbelievable what happened. 16-2 up at halftime, and come out as a complete different Dolphins team, and obviously a complete different Melbourne team, because the Dolphins and Isaiah Katoa went after the Melbourne Storm and scored some unbelievable tries. Your little mate, Cody Nikorima, out there flick passing and having a bit of fun in there. And the Hammer, who was, I thought, quiet in the first half, come a little bit alive in the second half and scored some great tries. So, it was unbelievable that scoreline in the Melbourne Storm, man. He would have been spitting, swearing, kicking. I can imagine what their training was like this week. A lot of defence, a lot of tackling, a lot of hard work, and there'll be some sore bodies.
Yeah, and I guarantee Melbourne Storm players do that hard work anyway. It would have just been ratcheted up to a point where nobody else could actually cope with that. And given that it will be on ANZAC Knight, right? Under those lights in Melbourne, we know how well they do it. Definitely. The Rabbitohs are no chance. We continue into Saturday. The Cowboys are favourites against the Titans. I'll back them. The Panthers are back, baby, and they're playing against the Seagulls. Favourites for that one, so I get to back Ivan and Nathan and the Penny Panthers. The Raiders are going so well. We got them so wrong at the start of the season. Hudson Young has been incredible. He's the first back rower, I believe, to score 3 try-doubles in a row since Menzies did it way back when. So Hudson Young is coming good at just the right time. He's almost a lock for Origin in a month. The Raiders will back them over the Dolphins, even though the Dolphins were so impressive against the Storm. And then the final game is Tigers and Sharks, and the Sharks are the favourite there. So I've got an 8-leg multi picked by the Betcha app. So I'll put a couple of dollars on that and hopefully have more success than I did this time last week. Anything you want to add out of all those matches this week?
I think it's safest bet, bro. The safest bet is the easiest bet, which is the favourite, and you've done the right thing there. And good luck to you. Good luck to you.
Thanks, mate. I appreciate it. And good luck to your Newcastle Knights. They're on a hiding to nothing when they come to Christchurch and face the red-hot New Zealand Warriors. Enjoy that if you can. Who knows? Maybe Kalen Ponga and company will come to life under the lights in Christchurch. You just never know, mate. But thanks for your time, Blairy. Thanks for everyone watching, and we'll catch you next time on League of Our Own.
Always a pleasure, brother. Thank you.